Hi, my name is Sheridan, and the day is August 28th, and the thing I want to talk about today is the whole debacle with Nestle getting a monopoly over the water supply. I don't exactly know all the details of what sources they're trying to take over and privatize. But some of the reactions and responses I've seen to this have just kind of... It was just like, really? Really? So, I sort of wanted to clear that up. Oh. Hello. Almost stepped on a mouse. I wanted to clear that up. Well, some of these responses I'm seeing, like, for example, water is not something that's supposed to be privatized. Well, it should be made public. Well, that's not really deprivatizing it. That's just making it private for the government and not private for everyone else. It's just handing over the monopoly to the government and not instead of a corporation, which is not it's not effective. It's not going to have any effect. But consistently throughout what the little I've read on this, no one is talking about something it's very key, it's very essential, and it almost kind of seems irrelevant at first, but once you realize the relevance, it will blow your mind. You see, gonna let you in on a little secret. It's illegal to collect your own rainwater on your own property. Now mull that thought over for a second, and maybe you can kind of start to see how that might create a monopoly a corporate monopoly over the water supply. So, if you aren't able to collect your own rainwater, you have to get it from somebody else. Now, primarily, that other somebody else has been the state-run water infrastructure. And of course, we know everything with the state is expensive, because instead of having to if the quality of the product goes down with anything provided by the state, and people decide that they don't want to buy it anymore, all they have to do is, well, too bad, we're going to point guns at you if you don't buy it, or fine you, or deprive you of property in some way. So there's really no incentive to increase the quality of the product when you have a state-run monopoly over something. Now, granted, in most places water is relatively cheap. There hasn't been very much state exploitation, but it's totally possible that on a whim the state could raise water prices. So now that we understand you have a government law that's creating an involuntary monopoly, the best thing you could possibly do to hurt Nestle's monopoly over the water supply is to make it legal to collect rainwater on everyone's property. And if you don't, it's just going to keep with this cycle of, water's going to running out of water. We need more government control over water, and then a little bit more monopoly creeps in, and we need more government control to manage this monopoly. We're having a shortage of water. Now, someone might put forth the slippery slope argument that will say, well, everyone's going to collect water, and there will be no water for anyone who doesn't have these water collecting. There'll be no water for the rest of the environment. Well, no. Someone's bound to end up with a surplus. And what they do with that surplus, I don't know. Probably give it away. Probably sell it for cheaper than what the state provides. Probably, who knows? Sometimes they will just dump it, and it'll go back into the earth, because and not to mention that the private ownership almost guarantees that something will flourish. If as long as that private ownership was not somehow brought about by a state triggered monopoly. For example, back in the 1800s, you had there was a crisis where the bison almost became extinct. Now, bison are kind of similar to cows. The reason that cows flourished and that bison almost died out is because I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it was illegal to keep bison as private property. There was no incentive to maintain the well-being of things that aren't private property. When you have that incentive, all of a sudden people take lots better care of that which they personally own themselves. And this kind of brings us to my whole beef with people who are anti-capitalist. Because anti-capitalists, whatever brand they are, they always portray capitalism as a thing that it's not. Capitalism is not, profit, just solely people profiting off of exploitation. No, capitalism is an economic system that is a result of voluntary exchange, completely voluntary exchange. So, several things that aren't voluntary. Taxes aren't voluntary. I mean, you can't choose to not pay them. You can choose to leave the country, but then you just go into somebody else's tax system. And the fundamental dichotomy is that what am I using big words? Not a dichotomy. What I mean is taxation is a violent response to a peaceful action. If I want to buy a sandwich at Subway, I'm not taking money from anyone unjustly with using force, but the state says to Subway, okay, if you want to sell sandwiches, you have to pay us a little bit of your profits because you live in this country and we have an army that defends you, and we want to fund this healthcare project, and also we want to grant some research projects. And we need to pay through the nose to pay down our interest on our horrendous overspending. But, the thing is, Subway may not really want that. But the government says, too bad, you have no choice, you have to pay anyways. If someone were to come up to me on this dark sidewalk that I'm walking on and point a gun in my face and say, you give me your wallet or I'll shoot you, that would be considered muggery. If I gave him my wallet and he gave me a sack of oranges in return, that's still muggery, even though he gave me something back. It doesn't matter. So, to extend that principle, it doesn't matter what I get back in return for the stolen money, it's still stolen money. You see, what if I really didn't want the oranges in the first place at all? What if I was on my way to Domino's to get pizza? Or I was on my way to Subway to get its salad? This idea that taxation is somehow not theft? Well, if it wasn't theft, you would be able to do exactly the same thing. You would be able to go up to somebody's house and ask them to subscribe to a newspaper subscription. And if they don't, you get to point a gun in their face. When people say, well, nobody's ever pointed a gun in my face. Okay, well, try not paying taxes for about 15 years. And deliberately refuse every time they ask you. Try that out. Get back to me in 15 years and tell me where that gets you. But it's not just taxation that's involuntary, but what I'm getting at is all these little regulations and rules, they I don't know how to put this, but they cause a sort of ripple effect in the free market that would normally have deflationary currency and and stable interest rates with very infrequent, if hardly any at all, major economic catastrophes like the Great Depression. I mean, you want to talk about state manipulation? Look up the history of the Great Depression and tell me there wasn't state fuckery going on there. You got the Federal Reserve bloating the money supply by 60%. That's not voluntary. You got the Wagner Act, the Hawley-Smoot tariff, and the fact that, we had several economic collapses, like 4 of them before then, and the economy recovered within about 4 years, and at the most 4 years, everything was back to normal. And the funny thing is, all of these economic downturns happened after a change to the tax code. You can find out more about this in the there was an essay. I know Stefan Molyneux reads it. He Great Myths of the Great Depression, that's what it is. I don't remember who wrote it. For more information, you can look that up. It's an essay. I don't remember who wrote it anyways. I'm cutting this off. Bye.